Francis Ngannou versus Dana White, knuckleheads. The saga continues. And you know, a lot of people are on Francis Ngannou's side, right? Because it's easy to hate the rich, successful guy, even if he made himself. Even if he's self-made. It's easy to hate the rich and successful guy. That's an unfortunate thing that I've seen in our culture nowadays. But anyway, and it's easy to root for the underdog, right? Francis Ngannou, a guy who, you know, went through hell and back, leaving his native Cameroon, going into Europe, you know, living a very rough life until he was able to finally sort of make it as an MMA fighter. And so, you know, it's easy to root for Francis Ngannou in a situation like this. But is Dana White the bad guy? You know, I can't really, and a lot of people might disagree with me on this, I can't really hate Dana White. I love what Dana White has done with the sport, right? And let me give you my reasons and, you know, and why I don't put a lot of stock in the comparisons between boxing and MMA. First and foremost, you know, nobody gave Dana some kind of magical formula in order to make it to where he made it. He kind of did it himself. Sure, he had some funding and help, but he went and got that funding himself the way anyone else can, right? And he built this sport to where it is today, and he is the barometer. So when people are saying guys are not being paid as much as they should be paid, especially in Francis Ngannou's case, well, who's going to pay them more? And why are you bringing up the sport of boxing, right? Which is a sport that's been around for at least a couple hundred years more, maybe a couple thousand years more than boxing, or than MMA, if we're being honest with ourselves. And it's a sport that you can't even compare in MMA regarding the pay structure. I mean, I don't even know where to start. You know, when they're building a boxer, you know, they feed him opponents. The boxer actually pays for opponents in order to build an artificial record of 10-0, 15-0, whatever it is. Their trainer will sometimes take them to another country where they beat up on guys that have no chance. They build them to 10 and 15-0. They sell them to a promoter who then, you know, starts making money off of them. In boxing, see, in MMA, you don't have that. In boxing, and follow me on this one. In boxing, the guys on the main card, yeah, they're making a lot of money. The main event, rather, not even the guys on the main card. The main event is making a lot of money, but what's everyone else making? What's everyone else making? Most people, I mean, if you go to a boxing event, most people don't even show up to the last fight. You know, I would argue that in MMA, there's a lot more attention being placed on the guys on the undercards and on the main card and on the prelims, and you hear a lot more about them, especially with regards to the UFC, than you do with boxers. I mean, there's boxers, you know, people act like the UFC is doing a horrible job. You know, guys coming into the UFC, I think they start out $12,000 a show, $12,000 a win. Guys fighting their first boxing match under whatever promoter you want, are they making that much money? I don't think they are. So, yeah, I mean, at the very highest level, you know, Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, these guys are making millions, Tyson Fury. But what are the guys on the undercard making? And, you know, a lot of these guys were manufactured. You know, that's why they have these incredible undefeated records. It's manufactured. It's all a play. On top of it, what's the investment in boxing? In the UFC, every time you turn on YouTube, every time you turn on ESPN, whatever you do, everywhere you look regarding the UFC, you're seeing marketing. You're seeing talk shows. You're seeing fighters being interviewed. You're seeing documentaries. Are you seeing that in boxing? Does that investment even exist back into the sport of boxing? I would argue that, you know, maybe Eddie Hearn is the only one that's kind of doing that right, if at all. Maybe Top Rank tries. But here's the thing. Dana White has a roster of over 700 fighters, you guys. What boxing promoter is feeding that many people? I mean, listen, you could pay one or two guys or 10 guys or 20 guys millions of dollars. But here's a guy who's paying 700 plus guys whatever amount of money he's paying them. It's a good amount of money. It's enough for a lot of these guys to make a living. I mean, not all of them. Granted, you know, 12 and 12 is not enough to make a living unless you're active. But, you know, that's the guys that are starting. Guys that are, you know, winning a few fights, starting to build a name for themselves. They're making good money. And so, that takes me back to this whole Francis Ngannou, Dana White situation. I mean, you're in the best MMA organization there is. And it's the best MMA organization there is for a reason. And yeah, they're paying you $600,000 according to CSAC, but what are you getting pay-per-view wise and endorsement wise and everything else? I just don't know. And is Francis Ngannou's gripe with the pay? I mean, because even $600,000, that's not horrible. That's not horrible for a heavyweight fighter in boxing. Granted, he's the heavyweight champion of the world. That's what people will say. But again, who's getting paid that much in boxing besides the biggest stars, and what's happening on the undercards? Is there any investment at all in the undercards? Is there any investment at all in the promotion? Is there any investment at all in building the future of the sport? We've all seen what's happened to boxing. Is that what we want? Do we want the culture of boxing where people build a manufactured record and get paid a lot of money to beat up tomato cans? Do we want that spread into MMA, into the UFC, where the best fight the best, are forced to fight the best based on an actual ranking system? Do we want a culture where there's only 20 fighters on the roster, 30 fighters on the roster, 50, 100, whatever it is? Or do we want 700 guys and for the company to continue to evolve and get stronger and pay more money? Listen, I'm being devil's advocate here, because I like Dana White. I think what he's done with the UFC is incredible. I think what he's done to combat sports, I think he's had an effect on boxing, on everyone. He's had an effect on me. I see what he's done and I say to myself, this is incredible. If I can do this, if I can get 700 guys on my roster and give them enough money to live their life fighting. Let me tell you a harsh reality. I'm a promoter, you guys. I'm a promoter. Do you guys think that any of these fighters are making a living off of fighting? I really hope you don't. I really hope you don't, because unless you're a somebody in boxing or a somebody in MMA, you're not making any money. And I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to change that with FightersRep. I'm trying to change that for the striking world. Kickboxing. Maybe it'll spread over to Muay Thai, which we don't do, but that's what I'm trying to do here. So that's why I ask you guys to join me, join the conversation, subscribe, share, like, comment below. Tell me what you think about this situation. Join the channel. It's just $9.99 a month. Where do you think that money's going to? That money's getting reinvested back into the brand, to build the brand so I can create something incredible the way the UFC did and be able to provide 500, 600, 700 people with a living and maybe have the chance to change their lives and their families' lives. People are mad at Dana comparing a sport that's been around for 30 years with boxing. Look what he's done. You come to a UFC fight, you're staying for the whole card. You're staying for the whole card. You're not just out there drinking and hanging out until the main event starts. It's a totally different culture. So you could knock him. You could knock him, but you should really be knocking boxing as well. Just because they pay a lot doesn't mean that there's a long-term vision there. I think the only one doing it right is Eddie Hearn, and nobody has a roster like Dana White does. Nobody. Tell me what you guys think. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. FightersRep 12, again, you got to join the channel, just $9.99 a month. That's going to get you access to the live stream. If you're anywhere near Southern California, get your tickets in the link below. You can get the live stream or the tickets in the link below or at FightersRep.com. You're not going to want to miss it. We got 16 fights right now, but that's subject to change. But listen, I just want to see the best for the sport. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say.